of you think you're self-aware, that you truly know yourself? Show of hands? Nobody? Okay, there's a few people here. Well, they say to know yourself, you must sacrifice the illusion that you actually do, that you already do. And that's probably because I'm not sure you can ever really get to a point where you know everything there is to know about yourself. Now, I was a very shy person growing up, okay? So my life necessitated that I ask myself, what is self-awareness? What does it mean to me and to my life? I was generally scared of everything. I could mask it really well because I was very high functioning. I was still out there, debate teams, winning awards, the whole works. I hid it so well that people used to think my awkwardness is actually arrogance. Fortunately, I was also very curious. So I wanted to know, other ways of thinking and being. And I didn't want to live in so much fear all the time. Therein began a relentless pursuit to face my fears. I did everything in my capacity. I did workshops. I traveled a lot. I read a lot. I watched a lot. I put myself through experiences, all to become like people that I admired. Now, the people that I admired were not surprisingly artists, actors, dancers, musicians, people who were on stage a lot. Yes, I was artistically inclined from an early age, but there was more to it, There was this sense of freedom that they embodied, this comfort that they had in their skin, which I never really felt. As I went out into the world to achieve this end, a pattern began to emerge. Every step that I took, I wanted to see what was the next bigger, scarier thing that I could do was. That's how I became an actor. I started with improv, moved on to doing plays, put myself through acting school, TV, web, film. What started as a personal journey became a full-fledged career. The same pattern repeated in other areas of my life, music and dance, similar trajectories. Chronology was different, but the pattern was the same. Started with curiosity, went to train and work at a professional level. More recently, another area of my being called out to me. I was seeing some patterns repeat in my personal life, and I was like, what is going on here? I want to probe this further. What started as watching YouTube videos, me being me, became an obsession. So there was online courses and life coaches and therapists. And this is when things got super interesting. This is what brings me to our topic for today, the matrix. What is this matrix that we're talking about? It is our existence and everything that comprises it, correct? Our thoughts, our desires, our experiences, all of it. What is manifesting? It means the conscious creation of something. How do you bring something into existence? How do you turn it into a reality? Here's what I've come up with. Step one is what? You have to know what it is that you want. I want to be an actor. I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a yogi. I want to start an NGO, yada, yada. Comparatively easier, I would say. Step 2 and 3 are a little more nuanced and what I'd like to focus on today. Now, we all know that everything that is worth having or achieving requires patience and persistence, correct? So then what is it that differentiates those who get there and those who don't? People who give up in the face of hardships and those who succeed. Viktor Frankl, in his book Man's Search for Meaning, says that human beings are not necessarily looking to be happy. They're looking for a why. They're looking for a purpose. And if they have a purpose, they can endure anything. For those of you who don't know, Viktor Frankl was a neurologist and a psychologist. He was a Holocaust survivor. He was in Auschwitz for a long time. And when he got out, he created an arm of psychology called logotherapy, which concerns itself with the need for meaning and purpose in the life of a human being. And what he noticed is that the only people who survived the concentration camps were people who had a strong enough reason to. Now, unfortunately, no one can tell you what your purpose is. You have to figure this out for yourself, guys. But there are a few things that Victor said could potentially be your purposes. Loving someone can be your purpose. Your work or a project that you dedicate yourself to could be a purpose. Turning adversity into triumph could be a purpose. Experiences such as art, culture, travel could be purposes. So then step 2 is finding your why, your purpose. Step 3 is finding your context. Context, in other words, your backstory, how we say in acting terms. the why of the why. A lot of times we go out into the world and we're doing things and we don't really know why, We're doing it because somebody told us to do it, or because we think we should be doing it, or we think it's cool, that's why we're doing it. Which is why our actions waver in the long run. Especially when things get hard. Why are you the way that you are? Why do you think the way that you do? Why is your purpose the purpose what it is? The why of the why. The answer to this lies in your journey. In all the things that I was talking about before, self-awareness, introspection, in the psychology courses, in the therapy. Now, these are tools that I use to find my context. You can find yours. But I can tell you that being on this journey has completely changed the way I look at myself and the world. And most importantly, the dots started connecting for me. For Viktor Frankl, his what was survival. The why was the preservation of his life's work. It was all taken away from him when he was put in the concentration camp. And also the desire to see his family. His wife was in a different concentration camp. The context in this situation was very external. It was wartime. He was in a concentration camp under inhumane conditions. For me, the what was to be an actor. My why was to find my truest expression. My context. What was my context? What was the source of all this fear that set me off on this path to begin with? I started asking whys, and it led to some very profound revelations. In hindsight, I realized that I probably suffered from very crippling social anxiety. My body was in fight, flight, freeze mode all the time, sometimes still is. I learned the concept of attachment theory, which says that a lot of who we are and how we show up in the world has to do with our early relationships, how we are in romantic relationships, how we are with friendships, our relationship to authority. I chanced upon this subject while trying to figure out this really weird contradiction in my own being, where I was really afraid of getting close to people, but simultaneously would get super attached to them very quickly. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. It's explained by disorganized attachment. There are 4 attachment styles: disorganized, secure, anxious, preoccupied, dismissive, avoidant. Look them up, guys, game changers, I can promise you. I learned about my core wounds and traumas. I have a history of abuse that definitely leaves a lot of trauma in its wake. I learned about cognitive distortions, which are faulty ways of thinking, such as catastrophizing, black and white thinking. Are you someone who feels overwhelmed by your emotions a lot? If you do, you are probably an HSP like me, a highly sensitive person. 20% of the population comes under this umbrella, which basically means our emotional input from the world is a lot higher than the average person. Now, of course, these are very few examples of things that changed my life, and this doesn't even begin to scratch the surface. But viewing my life through the lens of self-awareness completely transformed it. I realized I was not the emotionally out of control anomaly that I thought I was. I realized that fear is not something that can just be fought by going out and doing outside physical action. It also has to be resolved in my mind and my body. But most importantly, I didn't feel so overwhelmed all the time. I could respond to the world rather than react, which means that my choices became more conscious. It also made me realize that what I thought was my biggest weakness is actually my biggest strength. My ability to feel so much is what makes me a good artist. All that emotion needed an outlet, right? And the arts were like the perfect marriage for it. I also realized I'm an empath in a world which is starved for kindness. Now, a lot of this is genetically ingrained, of course, but so much of who we are is because of our journey. Some wound we are trying to heal, or some unmet need that we're trying to fulfill. It's all cause and effect. Through acting, I was trying to find the courage to be looked at, even at my worst and my most vulnerable. Through singing, I was trying to find my voice, which was suppressed. Through dancing, I was trying to feel comfortable in my body and with my womanhood, so on and so forth. Our context defines our purpose, and that combined with practical considerations determines our what. And of course, we evolve as human beings, We stagnate without growth. And as we evolve, so do our contexts, so do our purposes, and the what's that we're chasing. And we have to allow for that. As I'm much further along on this journey of finding a version of myself that I truly like, I find the need for contribution surface more. The need to leave an impact with my art surface more. Again, this is all too simplistic, okay? We are complex beings. Our needs are vast and varied. We have emotional needs, we have physical needs, needs for money, needs for connection. We have different relationships. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a masi, We're never just one thing. I'm an actor, but yes, I'm also a singer. I'm a dancer, I'm a producer, I'm a podcaster. Then there are cultural influences, our gender, our social status, our religious beliefs. All of these add an additional layer of complexity to this process. We try to define ourselves with these oversimplified labels, because labels is how we make sense of an otherwise random and chaotic world. But we are so much more. We are a complex jumble of all these seemingly disparate parts that are all connected. So then, we are the matrix, right? We're not outside of it. I'm not a mental health professional, okay, by any stretch. And all of this has taken me years and blood and sweat and lots of outside help. But let me humbly offer you this paradigm. What is the question that kids ask the most? Why? Go back to that childlike state of curiosity. Ask why as often as you can. Get curious about your motivations, about your fears, about your joys. In doing so, you will be able to forge your own path, instead of trying to squeeze yourself into some pre-cut model of the world that you're offered. Another very useful byproduct of being self-aware is that it gives you compassion and empathy for yourself. And when you have that, you can offer it more freely to others as well. So at its worst, self-awareness will make the world a kinder place. And at its best, it will elevate the quality of your life. It will help you create a life that you love. So in conclusion, what I'm trying to say is that self-awareness is the key. Seek self-awareness. Look at life from the lens of the wise. Go on that journey inwards to manifest your matrix on the outside. Thank you.